Which ultimate can Jeff interrupt or stop? Let's check out tanks. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's no way to stop or interrupt the Hulk's ult. You're just gonna have to sit there and watch your poor teammate get a beating. For Doctor Strange, his ult is so quick that there's no way to really stop the ult. You have to catch it at the perfect moment to interrupt. This is gonna be one of those ults that you're gonna interrupt as Jeff only if the situation calls for it, where it's perfectly timed, where you're already diving into your ult and Doctor Strange is about to pop his ult and you hear the audio cue and you just absolutely click as fast as you can to pop up. There's no way to completely stop Captain America's ult, but you can somewhat interrupt it. If you catch him before he empowers anybody else, he'll empower himself. You can go ahead and swallow him and just keep him inside of you so he's not able to empower anybody else. As you can see during our testing, the bot is not getting empowered while I have him in my swallow ability, but as soon as I spit him out, the bots immediately start to get empowered. Groot was another ult that we had to time perfectly in order for it to actually be interruptible. So yes, you can interrupt the ability, but it's very time specific because Groot throws out his branches very quickly. The only way we were able to do that is when I was starting to come out to be able to swallow, that Groot threw out his ultimate. That's the only time I was able to catch it. Other than that, I could not actually interrupt the ult. Fun fact, if you're in the middle of using Jeff's ult, you will not get rooted by Groot's ultimate. You can actually just swim around and it doesn't impact you. As soon as you come out, yes, it will impact you. For Venom, this was the ult that needed the most precision, the most timing out of all the ults to be able to interrupt. With Jeff, the only success that we were able to see from this is when we were already down, we were about to start popping up for our ult, and Venom then cast his ultimate ability. While he's in the air, he is exposed for just a fraction of a second. That's when you jump up with Jeff and you're able to interrupt. Other than that, there's no way to interrupt this ult. For Magneto, it was simple. There was no workaround. We could not cancel his ult. I'm not sure if he's immune while he's up in the air or if he's just not targetable from Jeff's ult, but there was no way we can stop or interrupt his ultimate. Next up is Thor, and I think one of my favorite ultimates to cancel with Jeff is Thor. You have just enough time for when you see him jump up in the air and you hear, "Behold the god of," then you're able to actually use your Q and swallow him before he's able to get his hammer off. For Penny Parker, because her ult is simply running around, you can go ahead, cast your ult as Jeff, go ahead and swallow her, and she will not be able to release her bombs or do any of her attacks, thus canceling out her ult completely. Now let's cover the DPS. A lot of this list, you're going to hear me saying that you're going to need perfect timing to be able to stop or interrupt any of these ults. The Punisher, he is completely invincible during this entire ultimate. We couldn't interrupt it, nor could we stop it. Storm is one of those heroes that needs to be precise timing. It's going to be at the exact moment when she's about to cast her ult, because as soon as she's up in the air, she becomes invincible. When she's in her tornado, you cannot capture her. So if you see that ultimate and the tornado touchdown, run. Next we have Hawkeye, and once again, you need immaculate timing in order for you to interrupt it. For Hela, there's no way to stop or interrupt the cast. As soon as she hits it, she becomes invincible, and there's no way for Jeff to stop that ult. Even when she's up in the air, you're able to do damage to her. You cannot grab her. Black Panther, yes, you could technically interrupt his ultimate, but again, this is another one that you're going to need perfect timing, and I can never see this actually be done in a game. We had to do a full countdown, and we really had to get this precise. Magic could technically be interrupted, but she's one of those characters that if she pops her ult, you can go ahead and counter ult by using Jeff, because you can swallow her and just hold her for the whole duration of her ult. Moonlight, regardless of what we tried, there was no way we were able to interrupt his ult. As soon as he were to cast it, it goes down immediately, so there was no interrupting, and there's no way to stop this ult. I guess the little one wants to be part of the video, so we're just going to keep going. Squirrel Girl, there was no way for us to be able to stop or interrupt her ult. As soon as it went out, I even tried to swallow the squirrels. There was no way to do it, and because our cast is pretty much instant cast, there was no way for us to stop it. With Black Widow, we tried time and time again to try to interrupt the ult, stop the ult. It didn't seem like we could ever get that perfect timing. Every time she would have her ult, she would spread that red stuff on the ground. Seems like Mocha had enough. Let's move on to Iron Man. With him, once again, you needed the perfect timing, but he is able to be interrupted. But again, I think you're going to do it out of luck or just a pure instinct if you hear it while you're already diving with Jeff. It's the only way that I know would even work in that situation, because you don't have enough time to dive and then pop out. You just don't. With Spider-Man, you can interrupt him once again. The timing has to be pretty perfect, but you do have that like split second between when you hear his audio to be able to pop up. Again, if you're down below the surface, if you're not already in your ult, there's no chance that you're going to have time to actually prepare yourself to dive in and then pop out. Next, another favorite ult that I love to cancel is Scarlet Witch, because she's so exposed when she's causing her pure chaos. You have enough time to be able to dive if you're quick and then pop up immediately, as long as she doesn't go too high up in the air. With Scarlet Witch, there's a barrier that pops around her. If you've never noticed, when she pops her ultimate, eventually with pure chaos unleashed or whatever she says, and it actually expands away from her. If she gets too high, you're not going to be able to reach her with Jeff. So as long as she stays low enough, she's going to go ahead and you're going to be able to cancel her ult, which I absolutely love because it frustrates all of these Scarlet Witch mains that are coming in for a huge team wipe. Now, one thing that's also really fun is they need to really pay attention to their height, because if they're trying to get away from Jeff's ult and they go too high, they're not going to be able to hit the targets on the ground, which is also going to be another benefit of why you want to use Jeff against a really good Scarlet Witch main. For the Winter Soldier, you can't interrupt his ult, but you can technically stop it if you swallow him after he pops his ult. Then he is not going to be able to keep his ability, and it just kind of cancels itself out. Star-Lord is one of those characters that you're actually able to interrupt and you're able to stop his ultimate. Once he's casted and he's, aim locking on everybody, if he's low enough to the ground, you can use your ultimate and just swallow him up. With Psylocke, yes, you can interrupt the ultimate, but my goodness, it is extremely difficult to time. Another one of those, if it's in the moment, if you're already using your Q button, it's perfect time. You hear her cast her ult, you pop up and try to interrupt her, but my goodness, if you can show me people purposely canceling that ult, whew. For Wolverine, there was no way for us to be able to stop or interrupt his ult. As soon as we tried perfect timing, nothing worked. He was able to jump out and get away. For Neymar, there was no way for us to interrupt or even stop his ultimate. As soon as he puts down his whale, you are in big trouble. There's no way to stop him. Iron Fist. If you're like me, you hate going up against a really good main Iron Fist. Those guys fly all over the place. The good news with Jeff, you are able to technically cancel out his ultimate by going ahead and using your ultimate ability and just swallowing him, keeping him in your belly for as long as you possibly can. Now let's cover the healing class. Spoiler alert, the support on support violence is actually kept to a minimum. For Mantis, there's no way to technically interrupt her ultimate. However, you can swallow her with your ultimate, thus rendering her ult kind of useless. But every time we tried to time it to interrupt it, it never worked. She was always able to get her cast off. For Rocket, there was no way for us to stop or even interrupt his ultimate ability because it's more of a dropping cast. There was no way to stop that. For Cloak and Dagger, there was no way for us to stop or interrupt the ability. Every time that we tried to get it perfectly timed, she was just able to dive underneath and do her ultimate. For everybody's favorite ice dance pop star, Luna, she was not able to stop or interrupt her ability. She just constantly stays on her little ice platform and just dances her heart away. Surprise, surprise, for Adam Warlock, there was no way for us to stop or interrupt his ult. Once again, it's one of those things where he kind of places it, but he's also in the middle of casting, and there was no way for us to be able to swallow him. There was no way for us to stop. It just went off. For Loki, because his ultimate is that he's able to take people's ultimate, just go ahead and refer back to this video, which one Jeff is able to stop and interrupt. Last but certainly not least, you do not and cannot have Jeff on Jeff violence. It is really funny to see the animations of both of them swimming together while they're trying to do an ultimate against each other. I love it, but there's no violence between the two. And that's a complete breakdown of which ultimates Jeff is able to stop or interrupt. If this video was helpful, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel. A lot of time and effort is put into these videos, and if it's something that you guys enjoy, I will gladly do more of them. I have been loving Marvel Rivals, and it's something that I cannot wait to sit and sink hours and hours of my life into.